We're back in our global tour of the Hybrid Cloud Partners podcast. I'm Felipe Pacheco, and alongside me is Adam Burke, my teammate and friend. How are you doing, Adam?
Hey, doing good. Doing good. Excited to be here and heading to Stockholm, Sweden today, I think.
That's right. We're heading into Europe now. And the partner that we have today is a great partner for Microsoft all around the globe. It's Crayon. They are actually named a leader and a visionary in the software asset management space. That's the upper right corner. And they were also a 2024 Microsoft Partner of the Year for Scale Solutions. So if there's one thing that I personally enjoyed so far in the podcast episodes we've recorded is when we talk to a partner that helps and empowers other partners. And I know our community enjoys that too, because they learn a lot from those conversations. And we're really grateful to have Andreas Bergman today. He is the global lead for hosting partners for Crayon, and he also claims to eat, sleep, cloud, repeat. Did I get it right, Andreas? Is that the order in which you do things?
Yeah, you got it. You got it pretty much right. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, and I'm really grateful because we're at noon Pacific, but it's actually 8 p.m. where you are. So we almost caught you in sleep, but you're still in cloud mode, I hope, for today.
Yeah, definitely still in cloud mode. And I mean, the listeners doesn't know, but it's actually Friday night. And I just said I couldn't resist getting on hanging out with Fede and Adam for Friday night. So we're doing this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Much appreciated. Looking forward to the discussion here for sure. So, Andreas, one of the questions we started off here recently, because I think it's fascinating, kind of the things we learn here, is really around AI, and would love to hear just kind of how do you use AI in your personal and professional life, on a day-to-day basis. What's working best for you right now?
So I'm a pretty avid Copilot user. I did use it to prepare for this call. But I also used it to figure out how to expand my wooden deck last summer.
Oh.
I don't know anything about building, but I needed to figure that out. So,
Wow.
it was pretty helpful. To be honest, the thing that I used most is the possibilities to use voice to control Netflix and turn on and off the lights in the kitchen. That's what I use the most. I use it daily. But the fact that you don't have to pick up the remote to stop and pause a movie, priceless.
Nice. That is nice.
Nobody worries where the remote is if you can just tell the TV what to do. And I'm glad you mentioned Copilot. We didn't ask you to mention it, but it's funny because as I was preparing for this conversation, I was like, I want to make sure I get the time that you're at right to be able to appreciate you being here on a Friday night. So I asked Copilot, like, what time is it? Noon Pacific into Sweden, and it told me it's 8 p.m. and it, for some reason, it wanted to continue the conversation. It asked me, what are you doing with Sweden or what's the deal? So I explained that we were going to interview an amazing partner from there, and it asked me to ask you if Copilot was your favorite AI tool. So I'm glad you already got that out of the way.
Playing favorites. I do like Copilot. It is really nifty. I use it privately and in work. So I think it's the most that I use the most to actually get stuff done. If pausing Netflix doesn't qualify as getting something done.
Now let's talk a little bit about this era that we're on. We already talked about AI, but in general, there's just so much change for your organization, for the technology world, and for the many companies and partners that you work with. So can you tell us specifically about managed service providers, or MSPs as we like to call them? What does it mean to you to enable them in technology? And what does that mean in terms of the evolution that you've seen over the past few years?
So if we to me, the question is kind of twofold. So what do Crayon do to enable the partners? But also, what do I think that the partners are? So let me start on what I think the partners are, because I think that kind of ties into the rest. So we know that the MSPs, in a very big part of that community, serves the SMB space, right? And doing business in the SMB space differs from doing business on public sector and enterprise. Yes, we're always doing business with people, but especially in the SMB space, where a pretty big chunk of your day-to-day IT life is probably it's probably what's keeping your business alive, right? So that means that the partner you are working with is essentially your lifeline, and you are entrusting them with the most important thing that you do have, your business and your data in your business. So to me, those MSPs and serving the local communities and serving the local SMBs are probably the most important piece to make that work. And the relationships between customers and partners, from what I'm experiencing, what I'm seeing, they get extremely tight. They know each other very, very well. And then when you think about what does it mean to make local business, you probably meet your customers on the football pitch. You might have kids on the same team, or you meet them in the grocery store. So being able to serve those customers in the right way is super important. And they really are the lifeline for a very big chunk of those SMB customers. And for us to be a partner to those MSPs, we need to do our job right so they can do their job right, and ultimately make sure that they get to sleep at night. Because if things go wrong, it's not Crayon that takes the blame. It's the local MSP that does the work, and it's them that actually has to fix it. So that's what an MSP is to me. I'm very, very passionate about that community, because I really do think they make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I like how you summed that up in terms of really kind of the importance that our partners make in the lives of so many, and also kind of the trusted role they play. I think Crayon really provides or plays a super trusted role too, as kind of the enabler of those MSPs. Maybe you can kind of share a little bit about Crayon, how you differentiate yourself in the indirect provider space. You have a large global presence, and you work with, so many of our joint partners and customers all over the globe. So I think, your perspective on this is super unique and appreciated.
So we basically cover everything from the US to Australia. That's about the reach we have. And the regions do differ, but in general, just to try to sum up how we differentiate ourselves. So first of all, we're a born in the cloud distributor. We only deal with software. You and I had a conversation earlier this week where I think you looked a little bit surprised when I said, we don't do hardware.
Yeah.
And that is an interesting dynamic. And I find that we get to do what we're great at, which is be really, really good at advising on what software and what cloud services to use and how to use them.
Mm-hmm.
And more importantly, we can focus on serving the partners, in serving their customers in the best way. Some of them want to be super cutting edge. They want to infuse AI into absolutely everything. Whilst others are pretty comfortable where they are. And there's space for everyone. The market is big enough, and we are happy to meet the partner where they are and take them on whatever journey they want to go at. Some want to make an exit, some want to grow, some wants to elevate into something bigger. And we're really able to focus on that and take them on that journey. I would like to see us more as a business growth path partner rather than a distributor.
That's very fair. Well, as part of all the value that you provide, our next question is focused on the trends that you're seeing in the market, and especially for that SMB segment that you're so passionate about. What is happening now that is different from what it was 1 or even 2 years ago?
So in general, it's kind of the same. Every region has its nuance, as I said. We have done some super interesting research in Asia, where we're basically seeing that each and every SMB customer have gone from, we don't really know what our cloud strategy is, to it's hybrid. We're going hybrid. Everyone is doing it. It's super clear. We haven't presented that research yet, but it is coming. So that I think that's super interesting. Europe, Europe is in a little bit of kind of a tricky place right now. There's a lot of geopolitical stuff going on that I won't get into, but that's creating challenges that they need to deal with. Everything from sovereignty to resilience to how do we actually work with that, and the trends. Typically, you try to lean on the vendors you have and hope that they will help you solve the problem. And being able to build that resilience within the region. I think that seems to be super important and has been, very, very on the table for the last couple of months. US is the US. It's a huge market. We are seeing a lot of traction in the CSP space in general. Europe has always been it's been a first mover. Like they've been super fast at adopting technology. From what I'm seeing in the US, yes, there's still that. It is the US. I mean, it will adapt the technology. But from a cultural perspective, I feel like that CSP business is not really taking on, or in terms of doing CSP business the way they do it in Europe. So, and that seems to be coming to the US now, and that makes me super happy. It's a different beast, at least from my personal perspective. But our local team got it nailed, and it looks really good.
Looking forward to that study. I hope we can attach it to like the resources of this podcast. So whenever it's out, please let us know, and we'll share it with our listeners.
I'll talk to the APAC team that's created it and see where we are.
Yeah, definitely would love to dig in and see that. I think you mentioned CSP there, and I think it is super exciting that really across, small, medium enterprise or channel business that CSP is really now kind of that hero motion for everybody globally, right? And we've kind of have the business along with the partner community all, kind of aligned under a single leader. I think we just have a huge opportunity there. If you think about kind of cloud maturity, the hybrid approach, you mentioned. Hybrid in Europe or hybrid in Asia is kind of the key play. I'm curious if you can kind of double click on that a little bit in terms of kind of the cloud maturity in Asia or Europe, and then US as well. Do you think about enabling those partners differently, or what are you seeing there? If you think about kind of the different markets, how you may support a partner differently or go to market differently in that space.
I think we're going to market in roughly the same way. It's all about taking the partner by the hand where they are on whatever journey they want to take. But what I'm seeing from an all-up perspective is, so a couple of years ago, you talked to some of these great partners that have fantastic on-prem businesses, super profitable, good-looking, really, really nice businesses. You ask them, hey, is the public cloud of interest to you? They will go, no chance, we're not going there. Today, that answer has shifted. Mm-hmm. Now it's either they're already there trying to figure it out, or they're, opening the door and saying, hey, we're actually interested. We want to go there. Can you help? How do we get there? Because essentially, we like to talk about cloud maturity, but when we think about, when you start digging into that, what does cloud maturity actually mean? For an MSP, it's about changing the business model. And it's a big shift from these big CapEx investments, shifting that into OpEx and figuring out how do I retrain and reskill my team to be able to handle this. So we've gone from not at all to either they're actually there already, some of them, and want to do more, to we're very interested. Can you please help?
Another factor that I believe must definitely help you in these conversations is your designation or your specialization as an Azure Expert MSP, right? How do you use this capability to support both partners and customers? What has been the biggest learning there?
So first of all, to get that designation, you actually have to be able and prove to Microsoft that you can do things in Azure. So us being able to say, hey, we actually know how to do this. We can hands-on help you. We've done it ourselves. That helps. It helps a lot because it's easier to trust someone that has the experience and know-how and has actually touched this stuff with their own hands. So that helps. But then there's also capabilities when it is, and to be fair, the Azure EA to Azure CSP transfer capability is one of the biggest one that we can help customers and partners with, basically transforming that enterprise agreement Azure piece into CSP instead. And we're using it frequently, and it's very much an appreciated feature that and capability that we can access to make that shift without making a technical transfer and technical migration.
The only thing that I'll add, though, on top of what you're saying of proving how good you are, when you do these specializations, not only do you prove it to Microsoft, but also there's a third party involved in validating that audit, right? Of okay, they're good to go. They are actually a real expert, right? So kudos to you for achieving it. That's a common question we always get, right? Especially when partners are reaching maturity, like, is it worth it? And it's very useful to understand, for example, how Crayon uses it.
I would say to us it's super valuable, and it's one of those things that has really become a game changer in the last couple of years. So yeah, we're very proud of it.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's a huge accomplishment. If I kind of circle back to what you said a minute ago about kind of the transformation and the perspective of business owners, like let's just pretend for a minute that I'm an MSP. I have a profitable business that I run in my data center. I have a private cloud. Like, what is the urge for me to consider a public or a hybrid cloud practice? Would you say it's technical, business, both? Like how do you talk to a partner kind of in that space in terms of meeting them where they are and helping to guide them?
So to me, there are, or at least what I'm seeing, there are two conversations. Mm-hmm. One being the proactive conversation where someone within the business, most likely someone in the leadership team, has realized that, okay, here's some business opportunity, we would like to go and grab it. So you have someone that has already paved the way. The other part is more customer driven. And I would say that might be more common. So the MSPs, from what I'm seeing, the MSPs are very driven on customer demand.
Yeah.
And being able to take that service that you might have in the data center and modernize that when you recreate the contract or when the customer demands the customer needs change, to do that in a public cloud, that's probably the biggest driver. The challenge with that is kind of like when your customer come and say, hey, we want to do that, it's not necessarily sure that you are there yourself in terms of training. So all of a sudden, you have a customer that wants something that you can't really provide, or that you don't feel comfortable providing. So that's a part of the challenge, but that's what we're seeing, and the biggest drivers behind those conversations. And depending on where you come and ask, if you come and ask proactively, we have a lot of time to figure it out. If you come and say, hey, we're going to sign this agreement, I have a customer that want to do this, can we get it done tomorrow? It's a little bit of a different ball game, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's super interesting what you said about both partner driven and customer driven, because it's actually interesting too how many partners we've talked with, and they're kind of like, hey, I like my profit margins, I like what I've got. And then they come to us a year later and they're like, I just lost one of my anchor customers. They said they're going to Azure and, they're going without me. How do I go and, kind of build this Azure practice? Because I'm recognizing my customers are looking for this as well, right? So I think being plugged into that customer demand is super critical for our MSPs partners, always, right? Broader than just kind of the cloud decision, to just make sure they're kind of able to sense where their customers are going and, kind of, I guess to borrow the hockey analogy, kind of skate to where that puck is going, right? How do they kind of get there? So
that's funny. I was going to go with another analogy because Andreas was saying that he used Copilot to build his or renew his deck. I was going to say it's kind of like that deck that you could be like, yeah, it can stand another year, right? But it's actually time to change it before it's too late and somebody falls off or whatever, right? You got to have like some urgency at some point. But I also really liked what you said about, it's not the same thing when they tell you, like, I want to start this journey to like, I'm going to lose my customer or I'm about to sign this thing and I don't know what to do. Which segues to really my next question for you, which is, what does Crayon offer specifically? What programs, what enablement options do you offer? And hopefully we can cover both, like something they can take right away and more of the long-term path.
So this is so in terms of enablement, as I said at the beginning of the conversation, we see ourselves more of as a business growth partner. So obviously helping the partner figure out how do you actually do this profitably is not necessarily a separate program, but it's core business. If, as I also stated at the beginning, we come from software asset management, we are up in the right corner. Actually, both companies in the upper right corner is owned by Crayon. So Anglepoint is also Crayon.
Oh, nice.
So software asset management is really where we come from. And at its easiest, it's by buy the right stuff and make sure you use it in the right way. Whatever surplus money you have, we help you use that to innovate. And that is the core value proposition that we go with. And then when it comes to migration programs, activation programs, we offer all of them. And basically, whatever Microsoft puts up, we're able to figure it out and utilize that to help their partners go where they want to be.
But just knowing what Microsoft has to offer is a science on its own, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not necessarily a licensing person, but I have people working on the team. I mean, they're basically PhD licensing people. Yeah. They know more about licensing than most people have forgotten.
Yeah, there's a huge market need there. I would also love to ask you, in terms of go-to-market, is there anything else that Crayon there provides value for the MSPs?
So obviously, we try to connect our partners with other partners, but the partner and distribution part, that's our SMB go-to-market. So basically, SMB customers that we come across, they can go to partner equally as going with Crayon. So that's a pretty good. I think that's a pretty interesting way to do it. And whatever we learn in the enterprise and public space, we translate that into SMB and partner business.
So how does the DCO motion, would you say, kind of fit into this equation? And I guess just for context, you have a very mature, DCO motion that you all are driving with partners globally. And just, I guess, in case this is someone's first episode, DCO stands for Data Center Optimization, which is really kind of how we plus our indirect providers help support that partner transformation. But how would you say it kind of fits in? How do you leverage it? How do you emphasize kind of that, full package of offerings in terms of GTM, technical help, sales help? That's a big question, I guess. But yeah, would love your perspective.
Transformation and change costs money. That's how easy it is. I mean, it doesn't matter what type of change or transformation you want to do, it's going to cost you money. The DCO program is a great way to offset that. And so for some partners, we'll do a 3-year program. We run a really tight ship together to help them transform their business from on-prem to cloud during those 3 years. Mm-hmm. For others, we've created activation programs, or kickstarts that we like to call them, where we basically start from square one. What is Azure? To during 12 months work together to graduate into, now you actually have a working Azure practice, so you can take those customer needs and transform them into technology and public cloud infrastructure. And the third option is basically say, okay, you're going to need our help and you're going to need our services to do whatever you need to get done. We will give that to you as long as we can run this program together. So to me, it's pretty easy. It doesn't have to be that complicated. We like big words. We like to call it GTM, but at the end of the day, we're doing business together and we're trying to do something. And here's a way to basically fund that conversation and that transformation. And that's what the DCO program allows us to do with partners that want to go down that path. That's how easy it is.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a great summary.
Adam's smiling because anytime you talk about his job and call it like makes it easy for you, he loves it, right?
Definitely.
And jumping into our last question, well, you said transformation costs money, but I would say also to add on top of it that transformation will cost you a lot more than money if you don't do security right, if you don't do compliance and governance right of your companies and your customers' companies' most valuable assets, right? So can you tell us how, even in this world of AI even further, you help your MSPs with this, particularly those that weren't originally focused so much on security?
I always think this is a very interesting conversation. So you go to someone who's been delivering services out of their data centers for decades, like like for more than the 2/3 of my life. And I'm going to say, hey, you know what, you guys, we need to do security. I mean, they've always been doing security, right? It's always been there. But what I do think that's important in this to say, hey, the threat landscape looks a little bit different than it used to be. We need to upgrade, and we need to figure out how do we do more. But most importantly, you need to figure out what data you have and how that needs to be protected. Some data, I mean, it doesn't matter that much, but other data is super important, and you're going to go bankrupt if something happens to that data. So that is the conversation I think we should be having with the partners, and the partners should be having with themselves. But obviously, the security conversation is intrinsic to everything you do. Yes, I mean, if you take Copilot just as an example, deploying Copilot without having your ducks in a row, you're going to end up in a very messy situation. It's the same with offloading stuff into the cloud, into Azure. If you don't have your landing zones right, you don't have your classifications right, and you don't have your guardrails in place, you're going to have a hard time. So the conversation to me is less about bundles and more about realizing that we live in a different area and we live in a different reality than maybe we did 10, 15, 5 years ago. And being able to adapt to that and make sure that you're one step ahead of the curve and instead of behind the curve, that's basically the conversation.
Yeah, definitely super important to make sure you kind of have your governance planning, your security. Like there's number of checklists as I think partners go through this transformation, right? And I know you guys add a ton of value along the way to help them really kind of confirm that they've thought about everything that they should, and then have kind of a repeatable model to success and what we know success looks like when partners kind of make that transformation and then get all those benefits as part of that. So thank you so much for sharing the perspective here. Super appreciated.
Thanks for having me. Thank you for this good Friday night conversation. This is a huge topic. It's a huge topic for a very big part of our business. Us partners, Microsoft, being able to have those honest conversations about what matters and how do we go and how do we make our partners successful. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really, at the end of the day, it comes down to customer success driven through our partners, right? And if we can scale that, then we're successful. But without that, nobody wins. So customers and partners, that's really where it's all about. Absolutely.
Yeah, I completely agree.
We appreciate your time even more on a Friday night at 8 p.m. Well, it's almost 9 now. So
it's almost 9.
I'm going to get you to the next step of your cycle to go to sleep, repeat. But in all seriousness, we learned a lot from this conversation. So I'm sure our listener has too. If they want to get in touch with you, we'll put your contact or Crayon's contact in the resources. We don't want to jam your inbox. But of course, we'll stay in touch with you. And for our listeners, stay tuned. We have more stories like Crayon's success coming up. We'd love to hear from you as well. So if you have any thoughts or comments, leave them below or reach out to us through dco.microsoft.com. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Stay tuned for more insights and stories from Microsoft's data center optimization team. Be sure to stay connected at dco.microsoft.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.